thank you for joining us, Scarlett St. Clair. You're the author of the Hades saga, the Hades and Persephone saga, When Stars Come Out. You are a pretty big deal. You've gotten a lot of attention and traction on TikTok. I see your books pop up all the time on BookTube, like we talked about. You've been shared on BuzzFeed. So I'm just really excited to have you here for LitFest this year. We appreciate you. So if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and just kind of jump right in. So what advice would you have for authors wanting to utilize the Amazon and Kindle Unlimited?
I highly recommend Amazon, the Amazon platform for self-publishing, and I highly recommend Kindle Unlimited. Kindle Unlimited is a subscription service that people can subscribe to, and they can basically read for free. So they can read indie titles for free, and then the author gets paid for pages read. And there's sort of a tier. So if they read the whole book, you get a certain percentage. And you're also you're kind of put into a pool toward the end of the month. So if you're one of the higher selling authors, you get a bonus. But indie authors can make a pretty good chunk of money just by being enrolled in KU. So I highly recommend it. It also comes with the ability to run your own sales on your books. So you could do like a 99-cent sale around the time that you're releasing a second book and really get more readers for that first book. So there are some really cool strategies you can utilize if you have Kindle Unlimited. So highly recommend. I also think that Amazon does a really good job of continuing to make their user interface very user-friendly. And they get feedback from authors so they can continually improve it. And it has definitely evolved over the last 5 years into something that's super easy to use. They've made ebook creation in particular very easy with Kindle Create. And I have used the other platform I can compare that to is Ingram Spark. And I use Ingram Spark for my hardbacks because currently Amazon does not offer the ability to do hardbacks. I think they're working on it, but we're probably a little ways off. They're still getting feedback on that process. And Ingram Spark is a little bit more difficult. So I definitely recommend. Amazon actually has a very thorough, frequently asked questions documents for people who are interested in getting started, and there are all sorts of information online for formatting. You do want to make sure that what you're reading is more recent. As a librarian, someone with a librarian background, you do, because that interface has changed so much, you want to make sure you're really up to date on the newest formatting trends and things like that. So just make sure what you're looking up on like YouTube or how to use that interface, just make sure it's recent.
Right. And kind of going off of that, what you said about coming from a librarian background, how did you make that leap from being a librarian to being a full-time author? Like, what tips would you have for anyone that's also wanting to make that same move from, either being a librarian to a full-time author or any other career into full-time writer?
Especially writing or just anything I think you're wanting to do is you have to be consistent. I would always tell people I had 2 jobs when I was working as a librarian. I was a librarian and I was a writer, because the time that I wasn't at the library, I always spent writing. So, I would work usually the 8:30 to 5 and get off and come home and, write from 6 to 9 or 10 or 11. And I remember intentionally, so I had more writing time. I would get up at 4:30 in the morning so I could get my workouts in, because I couldn't have that evening time spent doing anything else but writing. So I would say that, and I would always say set a goal for yourself. So you could endlessly write a book, right? You could just keep adding to it. So if you don't have a goal for yourself, like I'm going to finish this book by this date, you're probably never going to finish it. Right. So I would say just the consistency, the dedication to actually achieving that goal. I think some people just let the comfortability of their day job keep them from taking a chance on the other job. But if it's something you really want, you just gotta stay consistent. And it took me several years. I've been writing since I was 13.
Yeah.
I wrote through my bachelor's, my master's degree. I had several full-time jobs, and then finally, my books took off, and I could write full-time. But it took a lot of dedication, and I never ever gave up, no matter how much rejection. I still kept going. And that's the narrative a lot of people will give you, but it's the only thing you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're going to face a lot of rejection. You're going to get a lot of no's before you get a yes, but you just got to keep fighting for that yes. Yeah.
I still get no's, and I get no's in a different way. I probably get no's in the most frustrating way, which is, a traditional publisher reached out and they really wanted to work with me, and they wanted to publish one of my future books. And they said, we crunched the numbers and we can't give you a better deal than what you're making now. So it's like, and because I'm also in Barnes and Noble stores, which, that's probably something typically people really want. As an indie author, you think, oh, I want a traditional deal so I can get into these bookstores. Well, I'm already getting into those bookstores without a traditional deal. So what is this traditional publisher going to offer me?
Right.
And so I still get no's, because it's almost like you're already successful, so why do you need us?
Why do you need that middleman?
So I get no's in a different way now, but it's fine. It's better now than it used to be.
So is that something that you talking about, you being in Barnes and Noble? Is that something that like they've reached out to you reached out to them, as an independent author?
It just happened. So a lot of times if a bookstore has like a book talk display, which book talk is TikTok. It's just books on TikTok. It's some lingo, right? Might not know. My books are always trending. So if there's like a trending table or a book talk table, my books will be on it. I do have a lot of readers who work at Barnes and Noble stores, and I know that they just went to their managers on their own and asked, like, hey, can we stock this book? And they usually start out with 5 copies, and they'll sell out and they order more. And so it just kind of happens the more popular I have gotten. And also, since I published through Ingram Spark, a lot of times they have the hardback, but somehow they've been getting the paperback, and that's not typical. Typically, Barnes and Noble stores don't, because that means they have to order from Amazon. Typically they don't do that, but somehow they've been able to get those Amazon copies. So
interesting.
I don't know how it's happening, but a big part of it is TikTok, is book talk. And and that just came with having more readers. I'm not even very active on TikTok. I just now started TikTok, but I have a big following on my Instagram page. So
yes, you do. You were already present on TikTok before you even got there, right? You were already a presence there.
I had like 90 followers and no videos at all. But I would pop on there and I would comment on people's stuff, because they freak out. It's really cute. They'll like fangirl over it. And then I was like, I really should start doing some TikToks. But as much as I, learned new technology as a librarian, I'm less inclined to do that now.
You're like, if I don't have to, maybe I will. And it seems complicated,
and in order, as far as algorithms go, in order to utilize it best, you have to edit your videos within the app, because if you upload it from just like straight to the app, it doesn't get, and the same with Reels on Instagram. So it works better if you edit within the app, and I'm like, that's annoying.
I don't want to have to do it that way.
I know. Make it complicated for me, okay?
Make me work harder, I guess.
Right? Not fair.
So kind of a sidebar from that, how was the transition to like full-time writer? Were there things that you found more difficult about the transition that you didn't expect, or maybe less difficult than you expected? How was that?
Oh, I am still trying to get my schedule down. I will say that I was so structured, especially because I had to be as a librarian. I was a manager. I managed the information services department, that. And I had to be I had to be organized for my coworkers, you know, for
Yeah.
my direct reports. And now I don't have to be organized for anyone but myself.
Right. Which is much
So
harder, I think.
it is. It's
Mm.
like trying to establish a schedule and how am I going to write. And I am not a author who does a word count goal every day. I just don't do that. So I've been trying to figure out like how am I going to write? How many times a week? And then it's like, and then all these extra things kind of come with it. It's like people wanted merchandise, and now I have to figure out like, okay, well, how do I have my shop? And then with a shop comes emails about, hey, my package shouldn't get delivered, or hey, it got delivered damaged, and I'm like, well, I didn't sign up for this, right?
Yeah.
So when do I fit those things? And then checking my emails is very difficult because I get a lot of requests every day for just different things that
Right.
I forget to respond to. And then you have real life things. And so you think that you're going to have all this time and you will be, but you just get more things added to your plate. So I cannot imagine I cannot imagine having my full-time job and trying to keep up with the amount of work that I have now.
Right.
Social media just on its own is exhausting.
Yeah.
And, you know, I maintain several social media platforms, and social media is important for my readers because I think that's how I grew and got so popular. So I dedicate a specific amount of time to that, but sometimes I feel like it overshadows the real job that I have, which is writing.
Yeah.
So I'm still working on that. So what I have decided is I will spend 4 days a week writing and doing this admin stuff. And then I will use the other couple of days to do appointments and stuff. Because before I would tell people like, oh yeah, I can do that. I have a flexible schedule. Like my friend would want to go shopping or something. And I'm like, okay, well now you've got to say like, no, like it's, I can go with you on Fridays, but I can't go with you like Monday through Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm learning how to hold myself accountable and
and it's harder to have that structure on yourself than rather than having like an outward entity, you know, an employer telling you, you have to be here within these time constraints.
You've got to be here at 8:30 in the morning. And it's like, no, I can get started at, you know, 10 or 11 today. And, you know, I haven't written a single word today because I had, you know, I had appointments all morning, and then, you know, I got home and I could eat really fast, and then we hopped on here, you know, and it's fine. It's just like, you have to really say, okay, well, no one's going to interrupt me from this time to this time. So I would say just acknowledge the fact, like a lot of people will think you don't have a real job because you're an author, but you have a real job, and be very protective of your time because you're going to need it. It takes a lot of time to write a novel. It takes no time for people to read it. 8 hours. You'll spend a lot of time writing that novel.
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and
a lot of doubts.
A lot of existential crises, you know, just the usual.
I have one every 5 seconds, so.
You know, just author things, you know. So the way that you went about we kind of talked about the way that you went about publishing. What advantages do you think there are for self-publishing rather than the more traditional method of, you know, sending manuscripts to publishers? What do you think the advantages were to the way that you went about it?
I think for me, I think self-publishing's probably always been my path. I think a big deal is control for me. You've really got to consider your goals if you're trying to decide what avenue you're going to take. But a lot has changed in the years since people were trying to weigh the pros and cons of self-publishing versus traditional publishing. So the first thing really was that I felt like I had, and A Touch of Darkness especially, I knew I had a good novel. And I knew that I didn't feel like I believed in it enough that I didn't feel like I wanted to go through the process of rejection because I loved that novel. And so I thought, what's going to make me happiest? And what was going to make me happiest is to self-publish. But with self-publishing comes the ability to control so many elements. Your book cover, for instance, if you go traditional route, unless you make sure that that's in your contract, you're not going to have a say in what your book cover looks like.
Right.
The same with the content, your editors can severely censor you. And I didn't really want that. And I've had the experience recently of chatting with, an agent, and I think in some ways traditional publishing is a little behind, and they're less innovative and less willing to take chances. That makes sense because they're a business. But for instance, they said that my book it probably wouldn't do well in the traditional sphere because it's fantasy romance, and people who like fantasy wouldn't know what to do with the romance, and people who like romance wouldn't know what to do with the fantasy. But I also know from my sphere and the people that I'm in contact with that that's in high demand right now, and people really want fantasy romance. So I completely disagree with them, and I think that they are, making a mistake, but it's a mistake that constantly shrinks the publishing industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I also think, bestseller lists are a little bit of a misnomer. So if you want to be on a bestseller list and you think the best way to go about doing that is through traditional publishing, a bestseller list doesn't actually weigh bestsellers. It takes a small amount of, books that have been sold at certain Barnes and Noble stores and on other platforms and says, these are your bestsellers. And so it's kind of like a lie, right? Also, if you're thinking you're going to go traditional because you want marketing, well, let me tell you that they're going to put the majority of their marketing budget behind a few lead titles,
right?
Probably 4. And that may not include you unless you're really lucky. So you're going to have to do all your marketing yourself.
Yeah.
And so you might, if that's the case,
do it yourself.
I had a author who's a hybrid author, and I have to say that I'm a hybrid author, except that only for my audiobooks and my foreign rights. But I had an author who said, if you can successfully publish something indie, do it. Don't go the traditional route. Okay. And I had talked to an agent about that. I had just told her, like, this is what, this author said. And I know that she probably disagreed with that, but look at my experience. Like, every traditional route I've gone, every agent I've talked to, every publisher I've talked to, they have all said, we can't get the kind of money that you're making. Like, we can't get you that money. Yeah. So it's more practical for me to keep all my rights and all of my, royalties than it is to try and work with a publisher.
Right. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
The irony.
And the irony that fantasy romance won't be in demand.
I highly disagreed with that. And I think it's a very old way of thinking. But I always feel like the publishing industry is just behind.
Right.
And everything they do is sort of, every time anyone does anything, you take a chance. Right. And I just thought that was very interesting. It almost feels like what they try to do is give one person a monopoly on a thing. And I think that's kind of what's happening here. And and they're probably afraid of a bit of pushback, I was told, like, due to the content of my books, like Walmart and Target would probably, not really want it on their shelf, except they put 50 Shades of Grey on their shelf.
Right.
So, and I think they're wrong. I really think they're wrong. So no matter what you're being told, just keep going, because these people, if every agent was right about, like, if every agent knew what a bestseller was going to look like, or a hit was going to look like, then all the books they took on would be bestsellers and hits. There'd be no mid list. Right. So, so just do what you feel is right. And traditional is good for some people, and self-publishing is good for some people, but I was not meant to go that route, especially with my, my main rights. Right. So, but I and a lot of great things have come from self-publishing, like the foreign rights. I have 4 books. I have 4 foreign rights deals. I have Russian, Romanian. I'm about to do Germany, and what's my other one? Oh my gosh, Italian. I got Italian rights too.
Very cool.
So waiting for that Spanish.
Yeah.
Spanish. That's the big one.
Yes. Yeah. Once that comes through, it'll be sitting pretty.
ready for it.
Yeah,
I have
definitely.
had readers, they're tagging people, they're tagging different Spanish publishers on Twitter and stuff. And
Yeah.
they also, embarrassingly, but I love it too, tag like HBO and Netflix.
Yeah.
And they're like, will you make a movie? And
Yes. Yeah.
I'm like, yes, let's
Yes.
do it.
Yes, do it. Have them do the groundwork. You're like, that would be
Yes.
great. But behind the scenes, you're like, yes,
Yes.
make it happen.
Yeah. I won't do it myself. I won't be like, hey, Netflix, turn my
Yeah.
book into a TV
Yeah.
series. But you all
They
can.
can. Yeah. Hey, you know what? You got to get your support. You know,
I know.
they want to do that. Hey, who are you to argue?
I am here for it. I will support them 110%.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, how did you locate an editor? What was the searching process like, selection process? Did you have an editor? Did you do all your edits yourself? What did that look like?
I've always, ever since I started self-publishing, I knew editing was really important. The hard part is in starting A Touch of Darkness. I had my usual editor, who I had found just, I think she had edited a book. So sometimes in indie authors' books, you can open the front flap and it'll tell you who edited the book.
Okay.
And I felt like this editor sort of edited the same things that I wrote. And so I reached out to her and we worked really well together for a few years. And then on A Touch of Darkness, she never got back to me. So I had to try and find a new editor, and that was so hard. And so my first, I went to Fiverr at first, which I don't not recommend, but I do think the struggle with my editor from Fiverr was that she said that my book had been so engrossing for her that she forgot she was editing it. And I think you could tell, which was really cool, but also kind of, I needed that. So this, for Malice, like I published 3 books and I used that same editor just because I really liked her, but I still needed a different kind of option. So actually my longtime critique partner opened up an editing business with her friend. And so I'm using them this time. Okay. And so I knew she would be really good for what's called a developmental edit. And I highly recommend a developmental edit because they'll really help you with like plot holes and characterization and things like that. So I actually went to her, but I recommend doing that. Like, your favorite books, look those up, see if see who the editor was. Sometimes editors for big publishing houses will do freelance work as well. So that's pretty cool. There are freelance editors you can look up on Instagram even. Just know that if they are freelance editors, it's going to be expensive. You're going to pay a lot for editing. But the things that you should invest in are your cover and editing. Right. Because the cover is going to get people to buy it. And if your editing is not good, then people are going to talk about it in your reviews. So you really want to try and find a good editor. And it is it's kind of rough. And you want someone, always ask them to like edit maybe the first chapter of your work and review that to see if you like how they edit. Because everything in writing, even editing, is a subjective process. Right. And you don't have to take everything they say. You don't have to listen to all their advice, because some of it, for me, for instance, I know that there's a scene in Malice that makes the beginning pretty long. It's a game they play, Never Have I Ever, and they think I can shorten that. They think that I can take that out, and I'm not going to, because I know my readers will love it. So sometimes I decide to keep things because I know it's kind of like a love letter to my readers. So it's a process, but having a great editor is 110%, I think, the way to go. And I know authors who don't have editors, who edit themselves, but you're not going to be able to catch everything. And then if it goes up on Amazon, people can report errors, and if you have too many, your book will be taken down.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I didn't know that. Okay. So just important all the way around to make sure you're catching.
You can always fix and re-upload, but if they're too many, your it could be bad for you as an author.
Yeah.
Not
Interesting.
only that, but I mean, your reviews, like people will not read.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And already tank your reviews before you can
Yeah.
get it back
don't
up
want
there.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of, you know, you were talking about earlier that you could, when you have another book coming out, because you went the, you know, self-publishing route, you can have like a 99-cent sale on, you know, your previous books. So that, you know, in coming up with your new book, you know, you can do the sale leading up to that. So, but when you were initially pricing your books to put them on Amazon, what was that? How did you decide on a price point for your books? Have they changed with your growing popularity? Do you do things like that where you have a 99-cent sale or something when the next book is coming out? What's that experience like for you?
So with indie authors, and traditional authors set their Kindle book prices a little bit differently. Indie authors typically start their first book out at $2.99, and then as they publish, it goes down. I'll probably keep mine at $2.99, and then you go up $1. I just go up $1 every time. So Malice is up for pre-order at $4.99.
Okay.
You'll find that people really aren't willing to take a chance on a new author and spend $5.99 or more.
Okay.
So I think you have to consider that, like, even though you really want to, even if you really think that your book is worth $5.99, you really have to look at like what everyone else is doing. And also, you know, I'm a new author, I'm unknown. People have to learn to trust me first.
Right.
And so, yeah, so I don't recommend being like, oh, I'm a debut author, I'm going to sell my Kindle book for, you know, $4.99 or $5.99. I would definitely start at $2.99, and then you can have a 99-cent sale. You could even launch it at 99 cents and then tell people, you know, it'll go up in a day. So people will hurry up and get those sales in really quickly. I do always try to do a sale like on release day. So like for Malice, I'll probably have Darkness on sale for 99 cents, and I might put Ruin on sale for $1.99. Just so people, like, they're all in there, maybe they'll buy all three at once, you know. The other thing that will happen is I have Malice up for pre-order, and you can only put your ebooks up for pre-order right now through Amazon. You can't put your paperback up for pre-order. But you can do that. You can have a pre-order price that's like 99 cents, and then when it goes live, it will be $2.99. You can do something like that. But don't be upset if you're a debut author and you don't get very many pre-orders, because you'll probably get like 7, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And you know, pre-orders really cool once you're established, because you get a lot of them, and then like 2 weeks and even a week before you get even more pre-orders somehow. I don't know why. It's like, it's releasing in a day, and you're like, like all these people went and pre-ordered it, but
you can get it tomorrow.
But it's really cool. It's just, so I would say don't get discouraged, and it's just a way to gain new readers. I talked about this yesterday. I don't give away free books except to my street team, and I've only had a street team since September. My first street team was 9 members, and my second street team, which including the 9, I've got about 34 members. Wow. And they're the only people who get ARCs.
Yeah.
Because I don't, I've done this for a long time, and people just like to collect books, and your book as an ARC will sit on their TBR. And so I don't give away books unless I know I'm going to get something out of it. And I know that my street team's going to read the book and review it and talk about it all year long.
Yeah.
So I don't recommend giving away free books. And I know you'll say, oh, but I need readers, and you'll find them other ways. So
yeah, absolutely.
Not that way.
That is not the way.
I'm in my opinion, my humble opinion.
Absolutely. And I meant to ask you this a minute ago, but you were talking about having control over your covers and things like that. Was that something, we talked about finding an editor. Did you seek out illustrators, artists to create your covers? Were they people you knew? How did your covers come together?
I think it was helpful for me because I've been in the book world for a really long time. So I had been watching different artists go through and, just self-publish for years.
Mhm.
And one in particular I kept seeing pop up was Regina Wamba at May I Design. And she was a photographer and a cover designer.
Okay.
And I really loved her work. And so I've been working with her for years. And but I remember when I was first deciding to self-publish, I created a document, and I called it my marketing plan, but it included a lot of options for different cover designers. And I had just Googled, a freelance cover design. And some of them have stuck around. They're less, I feel like in some ways there are a few, I don't know, there aren't the same ones out there as there used to be. Like 99 Designs, for instance, used to be an option. They're owned by Vistaprint now, but that one was kind of cool because people could compete for, your business.
Okay.
But Regina, and then my other artist, Regina does my Hades and Persephone series, and then my King of Battle and Blood series. And then Emily Wittig does my Hades saga, and then she also does my novella covers. And they are two different price points. Emily is a lot cheaper. She is like $190 for her covers and her design. And Regina is about like $6.95 for one book cover. And that's the full wrap, which is a paperback and then an ebook. So, you can start out, you can always change a cover. You can always have a rebrand. And that is what I did with A Touch of Darkness, because it was my first romance I had written. Mm-hmm. And so Regina worked on a cover for me, and I chose one that looked very like romance based. And later, not very long after, I decided I think I want this cover to look more fantasy, romance, like more of in that genre. And so we just redid the cover and launched it again, and it's fine. And so even if you get a cover that you don't like, you can always redesign them. You can always, and you'll have to do that because cover design changes just like fashion changes. You know, for a really long time, there were faces on covers all the time. And now people hate people on covers, right? So
absolutely.
So you just have to, you'll be doing that from time to time. And the more money you make, obviously, the more you can invest in more stuff like that. But early on, I would just say, Emily is a great option. I would definitely look at their portfolios and decide if you like the vibe that they can communicate. And don't be afraid to tell them you don't like your cover.
Yeah. And I will say that A Touch of Darkness, that cover, I love, but it also, to me, perfectly encompasses that genre that they didn't think was a thing, fantasy romance.
I know.
It like perfectly encompasses that to me. It's the kind of cover that I'm typically drawn to because I know it's going to be a fantasy or a fantasy romance or something. Those are my jam. That perfectly encompasses it. So yeah, I mean, sometimes it pays off to change it, I'm assuming.
It does. Yeah. I mean, and it was a lot of money because but it was worth it, right? Because now it's definitely worth it. So I would say just make sure in their agreement, they'll tell you how many revisions they'll make to the cover. So just make sure that you have enough in there. To make your changes.
Definitely.
Typically it's 3. They'll make 3 revisions. So.
Okay. Interesting. So we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but I've seen a lot of your books circling on social media quite a lot. Not even seeking anything out. It pops up on BookTube, on TikTok, which is so exciting to see. What's that feeling like for you when you see BuzzFeed recommending? I've seen your books on BuzzFeed lists. I've seen, tons of things about Hades and Persephone's on TikTok and, BookTube. What's that feel? I'm assuming it's got to be a cool feeling, but describe what that feels like when you see things like that out in the world, your babies out in the world being talked about.
It is, the only way to describe it is surreal. And it's never exactly what you think it's going to be, because I spent a long time dreaming of all of this. And it's just never, it's like everything that you could have ever imagined, but more.
Right.
And, you know, I count the small victories, and that's what I encourage everyone to do. I remember the first time, you know, when you open an ebook and they have the highlight quotes, and it's like it's like 156 people have highlighted this quote. And I remember seeing that for the first time in one of my books, and I freaked out. I just thought, oh my God, that was the coolest thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so I celebrate all those little things that people will send me, and
Yeah.
you know, I say this all the time. I never thought I could change the world writing romance, but all these women will reach out to me to tell me how this book changed their lives, or
Yeah.
you know, help them get out of a toxic relationship, or
Right.
you know, just so many life-changing things. And
Right.
those moments are like, it's really hard to wrap your mind around being someone people admire when you are a person, you know, like I live in Oklahoma. You know, I grew up poor. You know, I was a librarian for several years. And I'm a person, but to them, I am something more, and it's bizarre. It will. I try every day to sort of come to terms with it.
Yeah. And it's cool to see, you know, you have, like you said, coming from Oklahoma, and, you know, to see that you and your writing and what you're putting out into the world has such a global reach, has got to be a cool thing, that, you know, what I'm putting out into the world matters to people, and it's making a difference. You know, you're making a difference as a librarian before, you know, I mean, at least you hope that you are. But you, at least in your community, you hope that you are. That's your goal. And now you have a global reach, and I just think that's got to be the coolest thing.
It is it's insane. I just can't. It's really fun when I got to meet one reader. I've met two readers because of COVID, and I was signing books at Barnes and Noble, and I thought she was there for me. And but she passed the books and went like behind the bookcase, and then she met me in the parking lot and introduced herself, and she was so nervous. And I said, I thought you were here to meet me, and but you went past me. And she said, I had to collect myself. She said I had to, and I just thought, it's so funny. I've never ever thought that someone would have to collect themselves before they introduced, you know,
themselves to you.
Because you know, especially even within the library system, I was always known as like you know, I interacted with everyone, you know, and so it's just really funny to be in that. And she posted I posted that picture because she immediately went to the group and was like, guess who I met? And all these people were like, I'm so jealous.
Oh
you know, come to all these states and countries, and it's insane. And for the first time in my life, I had anxiety about going out and about, you know, and and it's a weird thing. I was like, hopefully, I don't know. I was torn between, because I think people would recognize me mostly because of my tattoos. And I thought that was the first time, and it did happen to me. It was pretty chill though. I was at a place in Edmond, and actually she was another writer, and she messaged me, Audrey Gray, and she said, were you just at this place in Edmond? And I was like, yeah, I was. She was like,
that was me.
Oh my God, I just saw you. And I just thought that, you know, it was weird. It's weird.
Weird is probably a good way to describe it. That would be a weird sensation.
It's hard to, and I only know like a small bit of what like true people go through, you know, like, you know, and
for now.
Weird.
Weird. So
but I love it.
And I think that it gives you a great opportunity. You know, like you said, you posted the picture in the group, you know, you posted the picture with your fan. And I think that social media offers a really great way to connect with people. You know, I see so many authors involved on, you know, all platforms. So do you think that how have things like TikTok specifically, but, things like BookTube, how has that changed your marketing strategy? If you have to have a presence, it seems like a very important thing now for authors to have presence on social media. Has that changed your marketing strategy? How's that been for you?
I always knew that my social media was going to be the main way I marketed. So nothing's really changed.
Right.
And I haven't really switched over to marketing hardcore on TikTok just because that's where my books are popular. Because I think you have to stick with the platform you're most comfortable with. And I'm most comfortable with Instagram. You can tell where authors put their time based on how many followers they have on which platform. But no, so my biggest suggestion is to create an aesthetic around your author branding. And you can have a persona as an author, just like singers do, because I think separating yourself from that world and so you can have a very healthy outlook is important, because no matter what, the bigger you get, the more attention negative you're going to get. So make sure you have a way to separate yourself. So I would just choose platforms that you feel are the best fit for what you're writing. I initially chose Pinterest, Tumblr, and Instagram, and I mostly just do Instagram now. I chose Pinterest because it's very fandom based, and I knew what I was writing as far as Greek mythology was going to be fandom based. Same with Tumblr, it's very fandom based. And all I would do there is create aesthetic boards and also upload quotes from my book. And initially, people found my book on Pinterest. So that worked as a really good strategy. Before they found my book on TikTok, they were finding it on Pinterest. So I really focused on those 3 platforms, and everything I post sort of has the same sort of theme. It's like dark and creepy and but also beautiful. And so I work to really stay within that aesthetic. And I'm just very engaging. I respond to all of my people. If I can't comment, I like their stuff. Like I let them have a say, and I let them decide if I was going to work on retribution or malice first. So yeah, I would just say, like, try as hard as you can to create a community, and you don't have to do everything at once. You can just focus on one platform. And I had a pretty good following on Instagram before we created our Facebook page. I have a group called Cult of Scarlett. So I knew that was going to be, and even now I invest most of my time in social media because it's how I got so popular. Right. So
yeah, it's that word of mouth and I think also for me, I'm typically, if I'm deciding between a couple of books to read, sometimes I go on Instagram and I look at what, at the author, and that kind of, when they're engaging, it entices me more to read that book first, when I see that they're posting, that they're engaging with people for whatever reason, that just makes you want to support them more, but it also just, you get to know their personality and you can decide, I want to see what this person has to say. And I want to, delve into the worlds that this person creates. So do you feel pressured to post every day? I mean, is that something that you set time that you're going to spend on social media a day, or is it periodically through the day?
I think I just always go with the assumption that I will post every day.
Right.
Where I feel most pressure is just getting books done on time, honestly, because that's the product that I'm selling.
That's the most important.
I say, I think that the more we, as an author, you sort of become a public figure, and you're not just marketing your book, you're marketing yourself. So if you're not comfortable doing that because you're an introvert, or just you're just not comfortable with it in general, that's why if you could create the persona, then I think that would be the best option. I mean, Lemony Snicket's did that, right? So we have a lot of authors who do that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think going forward for you, or for someone that might, get into self-publishing? What do you think the future looks like for that? Do you think that we'll see a decline in the traditional publishing? do you think a lot more authors in the digital age will go towards, the self-publishing route? What do you predict happening?
A lot of authors are already hybrid authors, and they're turning to self-publishing because it makes money. Because you get paid in advances, and then even if you meet your advance, maybe your book doesn't sell as well, and then it's going to be really hard to land other book deals.
Right.
So I think that self-publishing will continue to grow. I think that more agencies will take on what's called subsidiary management. So these agencies, instead of representing your full rights, they're probably going to start trying to get you self-publishers other deals, like foreign deals and audiobook rights. There are always going to be people who don't believe in the self-publishing market, but I think we can see that traditional publishing, unless they're willing to evolve a little bit more, they just keep getting smaller and smaller.
Right.
So I think that will continue to be a trend. I don't think books go away, and I don't think, but there's definitely less stigma around being a self-published author.
Yeah.
And if you feel like, if you have prejudice and assumptions about self-published authors, I think you really need to check yourself, because a lot of us are very successful.
Yeah.
And I'm a 6-figure author. So I don't have to justify myself to anyone because my income does it for me. So I'm just like, if you think that, if you really think you want that traditional deal, you can be a 6-figure author for a year, but are you going to make money next year?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know. I am probably, and I'm not the person to ask about traditional, because I have a very different view of it. Right. It has been for me, like, there's never been any progress in like traditional publishing other than my audiobooks and my foreign deals. But I wouldn't have had those without my success in self-publishing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think you can do it well. And I think you can do it well even if you don't have the money to invest up front. You just have to make sure that you're constantly making the book better. So if you don't have an editor initially, but you think you can get the book as perfect as you can get it, then publish it. But just make sure you go back later and have an editor look at that book and then upload it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you make a little bit of money, then you can bring in an editor and repost it.
Never too late. It's never too late to do those things.
Yeah. Keep working. And I think sometimes people think if they put something out into the world that maybe, like you said, they've edited themselves, or, maybe isn't entirely not fleshed out, but not to the level that they want it to be, that's their one shot to get it out there. And if it doesn't go well, then, that's my one shot of being a writer down the tank,
No, I had 3 other books published before this one made it. And, so I just stuck with it.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah.
So,
which is
and I'm
amazing.
glad I did. And I'm glad I continue to try the self-publishing route.
Absolutely. Yeah. It definitely seems to be the route you were meant to take.
Yeah.
So
I love it. I love doing it all by myself. I think it is stressful, but it's worth it in the end. And I wouldn't want it to change. I get to set my own schedule.
Yeah.
I get to decide what I write. A lot of people have to quit writing a series because it doesn't sell well enough. And I would say make that decision. Like, if you think you have a book that's going to be like a hit and you want to get that one written, then work on that.
Yeah.
But it's a different kind of power.
Yeah.
Publishing is.
You get to decide what you prioritize, not what they prioritize for you.
And I think that they're wrong a lot of times, obviously, because they said that people don't know what to do with fantasy romance, which was so insulting, I think, for adults, because I just like, what? I'm so confused.
In what world? Yeah. That's all I see on Goodreads. Yeah.
And I just think that is a marker of, and that was one person. Not all agencies may think that, but I definitely, I think it's hard for them to take the conversation that was had with me is you would have to break into traditional writing something different. Well, the whole reason I am a self-published author, so I can write what I want.
Right.
So that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. doesn't seem like the route I'd want to take then. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
Well, thank you so much for doing this today.
Yeah, of course.
So we can tell people where to find you. What platforms are you on? What are you working on right now as well? You've got a new book coming out.
Yes, so I'm working on my third book in the Hades and Persephone series, which is called A Touch of Malice. It will be out May 23rd. Then later this year, I will also be publishing the first novel in my vampire series, which I'm really excited about.
Okay.
It's called King of Battle and Blood. And then later this year again, I will have the second book in my Hades saga, which is A Game of Retribution. And the Hades saga is all my Hades and Persephone books told from Hades' point of view. And they're actually favorites among my readers.
Yeah.
So, and they don't tell the same story. So those books have their own individual plot. So it's not like reading the same book. So I highly recommend checking those out.
Okay.
And I am on Instagram at author Scarlett St. Clair, I think. Better double check that one.
Yeah.
Author Scarlett St. Clair. I was like, is it Scarlett St. Clair author or author Scarlett St. Clair? That's where I'm predominantly at. My website is scarlettstclair.com. You can always check it out and go from there. I've got a shop and all my other social media links and all my books linked there. So it's a good place. Good place to go.
It's a good place to hang out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you and glad to see all the success you're having. And
thank you.
Hope it continues for you and excited about all the stuff that's coming out this year.
Me too. I'm ready. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.